What's going on, Pats Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Cans Pats Talk Patriots podcast. Hope y'all doing all right today. We had a pretty good weekend of football, a lot of good games yesterday on Sunday, and then we have a big game tonight that me and my special guest that I'm about to introduce we'll get into here soon. But I am joined by none other than Mike Yam of the NFL Total Access, NFL Network, NFL Total Access, the host. Mike Yam, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Kent, man. Appreciate the invite on the show. Certainly a good time of the year for football fans, unless, of course, you are a Patriots fan, as I know you are, or a Giants fan. Although we got to win over the weekend, so I'll just sort of smile and be happy about that.
Yeah, man. Hey, man. Yeah, like I said, pre-show, man, there's a lot of stuff going on with both these teams. We have a big game this
Yeah.
week, Giants and the Patriots. We get into that shortly,
Oh, yeah.
but a big game for the draft for draft implications. But tonight we got Monday Night Football. But I'm gonna let you introduce yourself a little bit to the crowd here.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. As you made reference to hosting on Total Access now for a couple seasons on NFL Network, which is just if I'm being honest, man, it's kind of awesome. I love doing the shows. We had a great crew, so it's always been fun there. And yeah, just sort of background. I grew up in the Northeast in New Jersey, thus the Giants fan. I went to Fordham in New York, and that's kind of where I started in my career on the radio side on the campus radio station. But been very, very fortunate, Ken, man. I've worked at NBA TV, ESPN, Pac-12 Network, and now NFL Network, and just to sort of be blessed with a lot of these great opportunities has been certainly a huge thrill. And yeah, also working. We just released a children's book. I'd be a really bad weatherman, but it's right up there. It's called Fried Rice and Marinara, and really just a huge passion project for me. It represents something that I candidly just didn't have as a kid, which was a book with an Asian character, and even just about mixed race families. So the premise of the book, Ken, is Mikey is about to turn 4, and his mom says, well, what kind of food do you want for your birthday? And he doesn't know, is it Chinese food or Italian food, because he's mixed race, and he kind of gets feeling like he's pulled in different directions, and he sort of nets out and realizes, you know what, we can combine them. It's going to be fried rice and marinara. And not to give away too much of the story, but it does have a happy ending, and all the kids on the block absolutely love the food.
And where can everybody find your book at?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. So appreciate anyone. I know we got the giving season that's right around the corner. We got Black Friday that's coming up, and obviously all the holidays. So if there's a little one in your life, and we sort of say it's anywhere from 3 to 6 years of age, it's a good book. From that perspective, it would mean the world if people took a look and considered making a purchase for some of the kids in their life.
Yes, sir. Y'all make sure y'all go check out Mike's book. I'm pretty sure it's pretty interesting, man. Appreciate that, Mike. Let's get into some NFL. Who's your surprise team right now through 10, 11 weeks of the NFL season?
Ooh, I don't know if I would call them a surprise, because I felt like they'd be pretty good and they were hyped up. But I think the reality is the Detroit Lions, for me, having the type of success that they've had this season is a surprise. Because once again, I thought they'd be good. The way they're winning some of these games to me is really impressive. Jared Goff, to be honest with you, we got our text thread for Total Access on Sundays, and towards the end of that game, I'm like, man, like they might lose this thing, and I felt really confident in their abilities to beat the Chicago team that, quite frankly, hasn't been all that impressive so far this season. And there were some really tough moments, the interceptions, and Goff doesn't throw a lot of them, but the 3 turnovers in that game certainly were a factor. But the resiliency and the mental makeup of that ball club to fight back, claw back, and win that game in a crucial moment, to me, was really impressive. And Aiden Hutchinson, for me, is on the short list of guys that I love watching. That relentless pursuit and effort in a lot of those games, to me, has been just kind of a joy to watch. Like, I don't know if I would say that the biggest surprise, but for me, the way that they're winning games, they're definitely in that conversation for larger surprises in the league. And Ken, this, man, like, depending on how the season plays out, they could still be a 1 seed in the NFC, which would be remarkable.
Yeah, I think I was kind of bullish on Detroit this also. I didn't think Detroit would be that much because I thought Green Bay would be better. I didn't know that
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins' injury would happen to the Minnesota Vikings. Then the Bears, I thought all the offseason signings that they made, they'll take a big leap. But boy, was I wrong, man. But my surprise is the Houston Texans. I think they have been a big surprise. CJ Stroud. I mean, a lot of questions going on there in Carolina. Did they get the right guy in the building or whatnot? I thought they was going to go with CJ Stroud. That's what the rumors during the offseason, during the draft. But the Houston Texans have been surprising to me, and it's not just Stroud; it's what he's working with. They don't have a top 10, top 15 wide receiver core or skill position core, but those guys are getting open, and he's making them better. That defense is playing good. Then they got a defensive led head coach in D'Amico Ryan. So I think that the Houston Texans they're really my surprise team this year. And I think they got Jacksonville this week, if I'm not mistaken. That's a big game for them. And like I think coming to the season, nobody thought they'd be able to make the playoff. They'll be like a 9-10 win team, but they already with like 6 or 7 wins now, and they still got like another month and some left of the season, so they can get 10 to 11 wins. Man, that Houston Texans are playing pretty good, and they might even win the AFC South division. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's a good time if you're Houston Texans. I don't know too many of them, but it's a good time to be a Houston Texans fan, though. It really because CJ Stroud is balling, man. He is balling. Um, Mike, take us through the life of your as a host for NFL on Network Total Access, just your daily dues and what. Take us through the background of everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of certainly Sundays is kind of a crazy day, and it's not just because we're doing a show on Total Access because we don't actually have a show on Sundays, but
Right.
I have multiple screens that are kind of in front of me, and I'm watching and logging. We're taking notes throughout the course of the day and sort of bookmarking a lot of the things that I want to discuss with a lot of our guys. But David Carr, speaking of the Texans, David Carr is on our text thread, Chase Daniel and Michael Robinson, and along with a lot of our producers and Kimmy Checks, who's my co-host on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So we're just kind of throwing out a lot of ideas, like what's grabbing our attention, what are the wow plays, the splash moments that we feel really deserve time on Tuesday and Wednesday. And Friday we're doing a ton of picks, but generally, it's just a ton of research throughout the course of the
Mhm.
week, finding out who's doing what are the trends that strike us. We can obviously you're just constantly taking notes when Saturdays come around. I'm always thinking about the draft and different players who we could be talking about in first, certainly in round number one and round number two. I mentioned this before. I worked at Pac-12 Network, so I'm still keeping a close eye on a lot of the football teams out on the West Coast. But a heavy dose of just a lot of research throughout the course of the week. And then on
Mhm.
show days, we got a production meeting early on, and there's usually some arguments and debates in our production meetings. And then we go to make sure that, we got our 1 hour show on lock, and all of the things that we want to discuss are going to make the show. And it's my job, I always feel like, to make our analysts look good because, quite frankly, Ken, man, they've
Right.
forgotten more football than I will ever know. So I
Right.
just want to make sure that we take advantage of the wealth of knowledge and the experiences that those guys have had on the field.
Oh, that's real good there, Mike. Man, I didn't know it was that. But I know you had to do a lot there. I know you said you work with NBA TV too. Oh, what's the big? What would you say the biggest difference between NBA TV and the NFL Network now?
Wow. So the NBA TV, I was fortunate, man. Like that was my first real TV job out of
Mhm.
college. So, I worked for them a long time ago. I kind of backdoored my way into it, if I'm being honest with you, because I was working and I understood fantasy sports and they were looking for someone
Mhm.
who could help out on their fantasy shows. So that's how I got my entrance into television with NBA TV back then, but certainly different. I mean, when I worked for them, they were based in Secaucus, New Jersey. Turner had not had that
Mhm.
partnership with the league where everything was going down out of the Turner Studios, and you see a lot of the TNT guys that are a part of the coverage on NBA TV. So for me, it was a smaller shop at the time, and man, those were fun days, man. Ken doing the fantasy shows, we were taking phone calls live and assessing trades on the fly, but it was awesome, man. Growing up, I was a huge basketball fan. I wish I had real
Mhm.
game and could have made it in the league. That obviously wasn't going to happen. If you saw me in person, standing 5'8", man, it'd be like me and Spud Webb just trying to
Right.
or Nate Robinson. I don't have the elevation of either one of those guys, but man, I had so much fun those early days, and just to have those experiences on the television side, that was really
Mhm.
what helped me get my job at ESPN. I spent 4 years there. And you go from singularly focused on the NBA to now all of a sudden doing all sports. When I worked at NBA
That's right.
TV,
You were
I
you, you
was
were at ESPN. I remember.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was 4 years at ESPN. I did everything from the NBA to college football, NFL stuff, like across the board. You're kind of doing everything. I was doing Sports Center, so you kind of had to know a
Mhm.
little bit of everything, which wasn't far from what I was doing normally because I was working at Sirius Radio at the time, and doing an all sports call-in show and NBA TV. So while there was so much emphasis on NBA radio and NBA TV, I was still doing a little bit of everything on the all sports show. So very different now, and the similarities, to be honest with you, Ken, are you're singularly focused in on what is happening in your sport. So
Right.
if you were going to ask me right now what's happening with the Lakers, because I see the Kobe thing behind you, like I know they had like a 3 game slide, a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago, but I'm just not in the weeds as much on what's
Hmm.
happening in the league. I'm catching bits and pieces. For me now, it's about the NFL and it's about college football.
With the way technology and social media is now, do you think? I mean, I know a lot of people they want to go to school to get the bachelor's degree in sportscasting and things like that. But nowadays you can like I'm doing. You have a podcast. I'm sure you might have a podcast and whatnot or things like that on the side. Do you think it's better that if you want to get that degree and go to law and do that, or should you just start your own thing or whatnot and have like your own podcast or whatnot instead of waiting on somebody to give you opportunity? You can kind of create your
Sure.
own opportunity.
Yeah, Ken, it's a great question. I think the short answer is yes to both.
Hmm.
One of the pieces of advice that I give a lot of college students when I get an opportunity to talk to them is the reps are really meaningful. When I was
Hmm.
at Fordham, I needed to be assigned to do a radio show at a given point in time. There were no
Hmm.
podcasts. There wasn't necessarily social media. I mean, hell, Facebook. That we had MySpace. Like there wasn't even
Yeah.
Facebook when I was still in college at the time. So these opportunities just didn't exist. Whereas now, I always tell the college kids, like, hey, like, it's really valuable to get that degree. And by the way, it doesn't need to
Hmm.
be in journalism. You can get
Right.
degrees in economics or history, and all of those pieces of information will help you as a broadcaster. And
Hmm.
obviously, there's connections with math, but just understanding, you want to be as worldly as possible and be able to have conversations with people in verticals that are just not sports. And to me, there's a lot of value that comes with that. But the opportunities that are in front of young broadcasters now, like they just didn't exist for
Right.
for us in my generation. So like you can really fast track your development in a short period of time. When I went from NBA TV, I'll never forget this, to ESPN. I remember unpacking my boxes like a year after moving to Connecticut, and I found my DVD, which was my reel that got me the job at ESPN. And just for giggles, I threw it into the DVD player, and I'm like, "Oh my god, like this isn't good." And I think about the jump that I made, even from a lot of reps in NBA TV to then all of a
Right.
sudden working multiple hours every single night at ESPN, whether it was doing a 2 hour, 3 hour Sports Center or ESPN News. Like you can't help but get better. And I say that to young broadcasters now: an opportunity to hone in on your craft, find your voice, make mistakes
Hmm.
when the stakes aren't as high is really significant.
Mike, Ian Rappaport, we see him every day on TV. Busy man, him and Adam Schefter. You work around Adam Schefter, ESPN. Man, how do these guys do it, man? Just mainly specific Ian Rappaport, you work with him now, but do they stay up all night? I mean, how they get this news out like that, man?
How about this? Because I mentioned, being able to talk to a lot of people. What those guys do from an insider's perspective, you got to develop a lot of trust with people at the
Yeah.
organizations, people with, the agents that are representing a lot of these players. Those relationships are so valuable. And you don't flip a switch. Like those don't come overnight. That's years of being dedicated to the sport,
Hmm.
understanding how to go and talk to people and cultivate those relationships. Because whether it's Garofalo or Pelissero or Ian Rappaport, those guys at NFL Network, they've been covering the league for a really long period of time. So they have their sources. And then the community is so small. Like we think about the scope of the NFL, the reality is like, there's only so many people that work in every single organization, and to be able to cultivate those relationships are so valuable. But to your point, man, like I can't even imagine. They don't strike me as dudes that can sleep with their phone on silent. Like just that news is going to come in when it's going to come in.
I'm telling you, man, it's crazy. I'm a big Ian Rappaport fan. I'm gonna have probably gonna have a chance to meet him and Adam Schefter at the scouting combine in Indy this year. I heard they will be having some press conference or whatnot, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
they'll
try
be
to
there.
meet them. I'm gonna try to meet them both, man. Let's move on to the NFL. My team, as you can see, New England Patriots. A lot of
Oh
stuff
yeah.
going on. What have you been hearing, and what's your gut feeling on what's going to happen? Do you think Bill Belichick could be back? Me personally, I think that he wants to get that. I think he needs like 16 or 17 more wins to pass Shula. I know it's a lot of records right now about him not coming back. My gut feeling is he will be back, but they're going to take away a lot of his GM dudes and whatnot. Probably bring in like a GM. I don't. I think no matter how they finish out the season, just as long as it's not a bunch of games like the Dallas Cowboy game, the Saints game. I think my gut feeling is, and I think change is inevitable. They need to change, but my gut feeling is that Belichick will be back, but like in a reserve where he'll just be coaching. They'll take away some of his final say on the GM role. What have you been hearing, and what's your gut feeling on it?
Yeah, I think my gut is probably in line with what your gut is, which is I don't think you remove him as your football coach. That a lot of
Mm-mm,
those reports were emanating, and it hasn't been a great season for him. And I think we all
mm-mm.
understand that. But it also speaks to the amount of success that he's had over a really long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't looked like this, in like 20 years, right? Like this
No.
is this is a different Patriots result week in and week out. And, it helps when you got Tom Brady for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger questions are from a personnel standpoint: who are the playmakers? Who are the guys that are really
Mm-hmm.
difference makers for this
Who
organization?
keeps you up
You know,
at
I
night? Nobody keeps you up at night.
100%. And especially not on the offensive side. And I think that also speaks to some of the results that we're seeing this season. When Matthew Judon goes down, I got to tell you, who's he keeping up at night? Everyone on the offensive side, offensive coordinators, offensive line coach, and certainly the players that are on the field, and the quarterback that is going to get chased down by Judon. Christian Gonzalez goes down. And by the way, high draft pick, right? Like to me, that was a big
Mm-hmm.
hit. I know Bill's taking some heat on some of these draft picks, but Christian Gonzalez is a real dude. He goes
Yep.
down, and all of a sudden, what you're seeing on the back end of that defense has become a little bit of an issue. And a year ago, when there were offensive struggles, that defense was so opportunistic. You felt confident, like, hell, maybe the defense goes and wins them a football game.
Right.
And I don't want to pin it on two dudes, but it's two real stars that are difference
Mm-hmm.
makers. Stars are going to win you some football games. So in my mind, you're probably right. I don't think Belichick goes anywhere. I think he's earned the right to say when he wants to go and
Mm-hmm.
leave. But I do think that organization as a whole probably needs to look at, what is on this roster? How do we make this team
How can we
better?
draft
And
better?
how yeah, there's definitely a huge part of that, and to me, maybe there is a change. But I'd also say this: that's going to be a really tough conversation, and I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that this is spoken enough about. I think all of us feel like intellectually this feels like a good game plan. You let Bill coach, you get someone to help out on the general
Mm-hmm.
manager front and the personnel and the draft side of things. I get that, but Bill's been doing it for a long time, and I think when he and Robert Kraft sit down, how is that going to go? I don't know if Bill's going to be like, no, I don't want to do that. Like I think he wants control over everything. He's been the chef in that kitchen, and he wants to make sure that he's the one
Yep.
buying the ingredients and making things work. And I do think the results the last two, this season and last season, do speak to something needing to give, and there needs to
Mm-hmm.
be some sort of change. And quite frankly, I thought Bill O'Brien was going to be the change for this team's offense, but Mac Jones, man,
He's
looks like a
regressed.
defeated player on the field. And I don't know how you win in the NFL or in any walk of life without having some level of confidence. And I think when that
Mm-hmm.
confidence is gone, it can become catastrophic. And I think that's what you're seeing right now from a Patriots perspective. And then, quite frankly, Ken, to keep it in that division, we saw in the news come out from Robert Saleh making a change with Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same thing could be said for Zach
Yep.
right now. Like, he's not even be the
Yep.
backup. To me, there might be a little bit of a confidence issue right there from an execution standpoint. And I give credit to Saleh. He recognized that and said, no, man, like we got to make a change here. Like we're still feel like we can be competitive enough to get to the playoffs.
And yet the Patriots haven't done themselves a favor. They haven't done Mac a favor by surrounding him with top end talent. But I've seen a
Yep.
lot of plays when I watch the all 22 that Mac, he's not hitting. He seems gippy in the pocket. Like the offensive line's not good. The weapons ain't good. But I've seen quarterbacks in worse predicaments make some throws and just make it work. So I mean, it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens in New England. I think for both of us to say it's gonna be one interesting all season in New England, starting after January 7th, the last game. That final game against the Jets is gonna be interesting. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna be interesting all season in New England. I'm gonna get you out here with this. We got Monday Night Football tonight. My prediction: I'm going with the Eagles and a close one. I'm gonna go 27-23. Philly, I think they get revenge from the Super Bowl or whatnot. They coming in, they heat it. And I didn't know Andy Reid was. I knew he was undefeated against his team. I didn't know it was so many wins. I didn't know he had played the Eagles that many times since he had left. But he's undefeated against the Eagles since he's left. Andy Reid is of the Chiefs. So I'm going 27-23 tonight. Philadelphia Eagles. I think AJ Brown has a big game and Jalen Hurts has a big game.
Yeah.
And keep an eye
Uh,
on Devontae Smith too. Who you got tonight, Mike?
Yeah, yeah. No, I actually, and I think there's some fans right now from a Kansas City perspective that are going to be shaking their head because I'm with you. You know, Friday on Total Access, we had to make our game picks. Chase Daniel went with Kansas City. I went with Philadelphia
I seen.
Eagles. I think there's going to be one thing, and you touched on some of the offensive players, and I think you're spot on. And those guys are going to have big games. And quite frankly, you know, Tyreek Hill is probably like here. AJ Brown is like right there,
Yeah,
and then it's everyone else. Like Brown has been remarkable this season, but to me the biggest storyline is what are we going to see from these two defenses? Kansas City's been winning a lot of ball games this year, not necessarily because of how they're executing on the offensive side, but because of how potent this defense has been. And a year ago in the Super Bowl, we didn't see Philadelphia come up with one sack. They were historically great a season ago with 70 sacks on that defensive line. It was wave after wave after wave of defensive linemen pounding offensive lines and quarterbacks all season long. They didn't get to Mahomes one time, and he was banged up in that game. This season, I haven't looked at the numbers since some of the games happened yesterday, but coming into week 11, they were fifth in the NFL in sacks with 30. So not as quite as good as they were last year, but still pretty good. Hits on Mahomes are up. Sacks on Mahomes are down.
I can't
It's not
believe
like guys are
they didn't even
actually.
sack him in the Super Bowl. I cannot believe that. It's crazy.
It really is. So to me, I look at what we my expectation is Philadelphia, that defensive line takes it to heart. They find ways to get after
Hmm.
Mahomes. And I think my score, and I actually don't have it in front of me. I think it was like 28-27. To me, this feels like final possession of the game. And maybe it's a final stop that we're going to see. Maybe it's sort of like what we saw with Aiden Hutchinson coming up with the big,
Yeah,
hit and causing that safety over the weekend. Like I think this Philadelphia defensive line to me is the difference maker in this game, and I think they're going to try to ball out.
I agree, man. I cannot wait. We're about to find out in a few minutes. The game is about to tip off here. About to kick off here soon. Hey, Mike, let everybody know where they can find you at and some things for the future, whatever that you have going on.
Yeah, for sure, man. NFL Network, Total Access is the show. The book is Fried Rice and Marinara for all children. If you want to check that out on Amazon or on BarnesandNoble.com, and then on social channels, Twitter and Instagram, it's just Mike at Mike_Yam.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, I appreciate everybody. Appreciate everybody joining tonight. Comment. I appreciate you joining me, Mike. Also, if y'all just tuning in, if y'all gonna tune in later on, subscribe to my YouTube down at Ken's Pat Stock on YouTube, Instagram Ken's_Pat Stock, and Twitter Kendall Whitley. That's still Ken's Pat Stock too. Also, cash us down there if you want to support the channel. Hey, Mike, I appreciate you joining me. You're doing some great work. Keep it the great work, man.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate the invite, man, and looking forward to the next one.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.